Can I just start? Can I just start by giving a shout out to the? Do you know that this entire thing was built by a team of 10, 22-year-olds? I mean, how crazy is that? Yeah, give them a round of applause. I don't. They're probably out fighting fires somewhere. But look, I get my Greek goddess wife and I get to call ourselves co-founders and mentors. But the honest truth is that we're the ones learning every day. And can I tell you that nothing makes me more optimistic about the future than young people who are willing and able to change the world. So thank you. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Lars.
I'm so glad you're here. I want to start with, look, I was watching the Google I/O keynote a few weeks ago, and Demis Hassabis, who was the Google DeepMind founder, and now I think he runs all of AI for Google, busy man. But he ended his talk by saying that we're standing at the foothills of the singularity. Like, tell us about this. Give us the big picture.
And what a better place to talk about singularity than Zapier. First of all, can you guys hear us? I know it's a bit difficult to hear us, but Lars, I need to start by saying kudos to you, the team, and to everyone that supported the idea and believed this idea from the beginning. Amazing work, and I think it's not just about this event, but it's about building this muscle with youth and students and really lighting the fire of what's next to come. So thank you. Let's talk about Demis, of course. Well, we were lucky and honored to host Demis, as you know, last year. And two things he said stuck with me. Well, first of all, let's say that anything Demis says, it's not a sci-fi movie prediction or a hype, right? It's something that he's one of the most esteemed scientists as we speak on AI, and also a Nobel Award laureate. So there's real gravitas there. So the two things that he said and stuck with me were, one, that AI will have 10x the speed and 10x the intensity of industrial revolution. So that's 100x. And if we know anything about what industrial revolution did for economy and society, maybe we can imagine the exponential effect that AI is having. And the second part is that we are 3 to 5 years away from, singularity is kind of defined as the point where the algorithms will start developing their own, improving their own models faster than humanity can do it for them. AGI is the point where all the algorithms will basically do all of the human tasks at the level that the top scientists can actually perform. So in his words, we're 3 to 5 years away from that. So if that is the case, this is going to be a different world by 2030.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy.
Tell me, let's focus on what, AI is going to change everything. But I know one thing that really excites me, and I think is relevant also to the strength of our ecosystem here, is healthcare. Like, I think Google spun off a drug discovery company.
Yes, that is also very inspiring for me. Isomorphic Labs is a company that Demis has started and is now part of the Alphabet umbrella. Their vision is to eliminate all human illness in the next decade. So once you say that sentence, you have to stop for a few seconds and really grasp what we're talking about. And I was also pleasantly, I don't know if I was surprised or not, but it was really reassuring. A few weeks ago in Delphi, I was in a panel with Dr. George Krousos. He's a world-class member of the Academy of Athens, and he's world-class in his field. And he said that in his prediction, we're entering the golden decade of science and medicine. We're approaching a cancer-free society, and that we're very close to a point where we can run a full checkup without even a drop of blood. On one hand, you hear all this and you're thinking, wow, it's happening. On the other hand, we see every day, illness and things happening around us, and you think, it needs to go faster, Sometimes you feel it's going too fast, and sometimes you say, okay, it needs to happen faster.
Yes, no, that is so true. That is so true. Look, when I look at the news, I gotta say, like, we were actually talking about this out back. Like, if you took the AI out of the news, it would be a really grim picture. The AI is the best, most optimistic news out there.
Exactly. I mean,
Agree.
you know, when people talk about the AI bubble, the AI hype, or whatever you want to call it, but the truth is, if you take the AI discussion or the AI developments or the AI news or the AI promise or prospects, there's a lot of bad news in the world right now. So I will take the AI hype, you know, any day. And as an optimist myself, I need to acknowledge, because you know there's a lot of youth here today, and as you said, this event is basically run and you know in a way designed by youth for youth, and we need to acknowledge the ambiguity, right? The stress level that you know might be out there if you just graduating college, if you're just starting your own business, what's happening, what's changing, what's going to be there, what do I need to do, and we need to acknowledge that because the change is there. And also, I need to acknowledge the same level of change. If you're, you know, a middle-aged CEO or like, you know, a businessman or a businesswoman that, you know, have had a successful business for decades, what is happening now? How do you adjust? How do you lead in the times of AI, right? And if I can say one thing, is that we need to shift as leaders. We need leaders at any topic, by the way, business or politics or you know whatever. We need to shift from being AI aware, like we know that AI is happening and something is happening and we need to do something, to what I call chief experimenters. We need to play and use all these tools. There's plenty of tools, plenty of choice. We need to make sure, each one of us needs to make sure that you know we know what is relevant for us, design what is relevant for us, fun or business or productivity or whatever, because the potential that we have right now is higher than ever before. For a small country like this, like Greece, this is really, really massive. So we need to really know what we're talking about. There's no way you can lead an organization unless you can really understand what is happening.
Yeah, so true. So
And by the way, I mean, sorry, but this is an important point. It sounds a bit weird, but AI is actually low tech in a way, because essentially, you know, you don't really need to know anything. Right. You can even code by just talking, by just saying what you want to create. Yes. So it's as low tech as it gets.
Yes, no, that is very true. Look, let's change tack just for a little bit. I want to get to talk about what this all means for founders.
Yeah.
But just for a little bit, since you know we're both Europeans, there's a lot of talk in Europe about sovereignty of AI, about regulation, and in fact, I was watching the I/O keynote, right? Yes. And there is this enormous list of insanely exciting products being announced in America, and I'm thinking, when will these come to me? I don't even know when what's going to be allowed here and which country. I mean, how does Google think? How do you, as a European, being a leader inside Google, think about this?
It's always interesting to be in this position, and actually one thing that Demis pointed out was that he is European, he's based out of London, and he's one of the few European voices in this global debate, right, of the high stakeholders. So it's really good that we have him there. But let me say that we always say as Google that AI is too important not to regulate, and it's too important not to regulate well. So we need to be very cautious and very careful, ensuring that with regulation we achieve what we want to achieve without unintended consequences. Europe, you know, has a leading role in this, and that's great. Sometimes maybe over, you know, is over successful, let's put it like this, or overactive in this field, because in the last 2 years alone, I think we've counted something like more of 150 pieces of legislation just only on IT, right, on technology. So, and as you mentioned, a lot of these products, we don't know at this point when and how many will be coming to Europe, because we have to navigate through a lot of complexity of regulation to ensure that they happen. And you can imagine if Google, with these massive teams of compliance, legal, regulators, checking on all of this, you can imagine what that means for startups, for other innovation and other products. So it's really important to regulate, it's really important to regulate well, and it's really important that we regulate by risk not just peanut butter, regulate everything. So I think this is going to be a discussion. Technology and innovation always runs faster than regulation. Always has and always will, right? So we always play catch-up with innovation. But just to give you a small example, AI mode and AI overviews, if you've heard of them, it's the AI-generated Google search, essentially. It's not available as we speak in France and in Spain. And it's been available in the US for more than a year due to regulation. So this is going to be, I think, an ongoing discussion, an important one.
For sure. Thank you. Look, Panathēnea, like Slush Up in Finland, we're intensely focused on founders. Because we believe founders, young founders, old founders, they're the ones that are going to build us a better future. So actually, who in the room here think of themselves as a founder? Founders, any founders in the room? Founders, more founders? Excellent. So a couple of questions. Well, look, how does Google think of the region for starters here? What kind of resources does Google make available to startup founders in this region? Or even like, what's the picture of development teams working for Google in this part of the world?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because we call ourselves the region of opportunity within Google, within EMEA, actually. And why is that? It is because we have a lot of youth, we have a lot of engineers, high quality of talent, and also we're very much friendly and keen to innovate and adopt new technologies, right? So we don't have the luxury of being the incumbent or a big, massive European economy that maybe has other industries to rely on. We are a country, and I think also a government that actually adopted very innovative policies, cloud first, AI first. So these are all really, really important factors. What is equally important is to make sure that we are as export-driven as possible. And as this is a huge part of my role, I see every day Greek startups, Greek companies that are starting even from a small town in Crete that actually becomes #3 platform in rentals globally. So you can actually have global access, or you can grow your business in Latin America or in the UK, US. So a lot of our customers in Greece actually have their business across the globe. We have to travel to all sorts of places to meet them where they grow their businesses. So the opportunity is here. We need to keep it up. We need to really make sure that we actually adopt all these tools. There was actually a research that might be useful to mention as we speak, where we saw that actually if we adopt AI tools, we can add an extra 10% of GDP in the next 10 years collaboratively. But if we actually are late into adopting all these new AI tools, that will go down to 1%. So speed is of the essence. Right. I think the policies are there, and then it's just a matter of how fast we can move.
That makes sense. Look at a burning question, I think, on all founders' minds these days, that AI is going to change everything. Yeah. And so you can apply this insane new revolution in technology to everything. How should a founder think of this question? Like, I might go and build an amazing product, even something that can grow super quickly, but how do I avoid the potential trap that one of the hyperscalers, like Google or one of the other big labs, just makes that a feature?
Yes.
How do we think about this?
Well, maybe if you allow me, I will use you as an example to answer this question. Because how many years ago was it when you started the idea of solving the maps?
25 short years.
25 years or so. Back at that point, there was browsers, there was the web. You didn't try to, create a new platform or to actually create, a new browser. You actually tried to solve a very specific problem. You thought that there must be a faster, smarter, whatever way to do something like that, and you actually became a feature in Google. You're now Google Maps, right? So a round of applause, please, for Lance on this. So the question, I think, if I was a founder, and I have a huge amount of admiration for the amount of energy and how brave you need to be to actually become a founder. I wouldn't be trying to invest in building an LLM or creating a platform, because essentially the barriers to entry are now really, really massive. I mean, Google alone has announced it's going to spend 150 billion on infrastructure, right? So, but there's upside to this if you're a founder, because now you have access to all the platform, to all the solutions, to agents that can actually run workflows for you. You can vibe code faster and easier than ever. The question is, what problem are you trying to solve? What industries are there, to buy it from you? Because all these big LLMs, they know a lot of things about everything, basically, but they don't know specifics. They cannot go niche, let's say, on specific industries, specific geos, specific, role needs or anything like that. So, in my mind, if I had to put it on a picture, it's like, Google is kind of building the grid, and the startups are building like the nice appliances, the niche appliance that will actually solve the problem, and you want to use them and look at them and feel them. There's mega appliances.
Amazing, amazing. All right, look, we have a minute and 20 seconds left. What's your best advice to the crowd here, do you think?
My best advice is be all in what's happening, because you cannot stop the flow. The flow is only moving one direction. Let's use it, to actually become more productive. We've always talked about the productivity issue in Greece, fairly or not fairly, depending on what you look at. I was just looking at some Eurostats information that we have the longest working week in Europe. Consistently, we hold the longest working hours. So let's become more productive. Let's become more global. Let's become more competitive. And as leaders, let us experiment. Let us be vulnerable and ask questions. I have no idea how this works. Can someone explain? The youth will always have an advantage on technology, right? Technology respects innovation and doesn't respect necessarily tradition. So ask questions, play with the tools, customize something for you, even if it's something small, something fun. Use all these tools to make your life and your work better.
Amazing. Guys, give Peggy a huge round of applause. And thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of Panathēnea. Stay cool. Springtime Athens is showing her best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lars.